Hello, today we will be talking about ethno marketing. The members of our group are Cecilia, Silvia, Arthur, and Fahmi.
So this is our table of contents. During this presentation, we'll be having an introduction first, and then we'll be talking about the fundamental points of ethnic marketing. After that, we're going to give you some examples of ethnic marketing. Then we'll be talking about ethnicity, ethics, and ethnic marketing strategies. Also, customer interaction. We're going to show you curiosity. We're also going to mention the Turks in Germany, and then other ethnic minorities. And at the end, finally, we'll be having our conclusion.
Ethno-marketing is the discipline responsible for the study of clients from a cultural and traditional perspective, taking into account elements that are specific to their place of origin. The knowledge of the consumer is one of the keys to succeeding marketing strategies, so ethno-marketing seeks to understand consumers, conquer new potential buyers, and retain those who already have. Ethnos comes from the Greek language and meant people, and was used in ancient Greek to refer to foreign people. Normally, ethnic marketing is referred as advertising for immigrants. This misconception was repeatedly the cause of well-intentioned but hastily executed communication measures. Ethnic marketing includes all basic strategic, planning, and operational activities focused on ethnic characteristics of the defined target group.
In order to understand better what ethno-marketing consists on, we have highlighted two important points that must be carried out in order to implement an effective marketing plan. These 2 points are identifying communities and identifying beliefs, values, and singularities. On the one hand, identifying communities consists on studying the entire cultural environment of the market in which the company wants to access, and segmenting the target audience that is in it. This is an important point because in this way difference of cultures can be discovered, and this will allow to segment the market in an optimal way. On the other hand, identifying beliefs, values, and singularities consists on that previous research on the essence and characteristics of the community in order to achieve a structure base that can lead us to the appropriate strategy. Now we have, for example, that can help us understand better this point. The example number 1 is about Univision TV channel, the first Spanish language channel in the USA. It was born in 1962 due to the need of Spanish language news from the Hispanic and Latino community in the USA. The plan they started to attract the members of this community had some points such as a neutrality policy to guarantee the proper use of all Spanish dialects and don't focus on just one. The prohibition of the use of English in programming and advertisements, and one example was the use of specific Spanish names instead of English for countries or cities. It's like Nova York and not New York. And finally, the adoption of audience schedules of the Latin American model, for example, at 8 in the afternoon, children's programs. The second and third example refer to Rihanna's cosmetic brand, Fenty Beauty, and Nike. The Fenty Beauty case is known worldwide thanks to the popularity of the singer. This brand was born from the need to provide all colored people makeup products according to their skin tone. So the singer's main goal was to increase diversity and the inclusion of this ethnic group in the makeup industry. All of these facts with a great digital marketing campaign has revolutionized and promoted the notion of multiculturalism in this industry. In the case of Nike, we have selected the launch of a hijab for female athletes in 2018. And Nike studied the Muslim market and saw that female athletes always had to wear the conventional one. So they chose to enter this market by launching a product according to the needs that were not covered, culture or religion. Finally, another worldwide example is McDonald's, a company that implements different strategies and offer in each country according to the customs and cultures. One of these strategies is the adaptation of the brand to the Indian culture. Most of the Indian population is vegetarian because of religious reasons. So in 2012, McDonald's opened completely a vegetarian establishment in the country. And many of its famous products, such as Big Mac, were replaced by vegetarian versions such as McVeggie.
Now we are going to talk about the ethnicity. As I mentioned in the introduction, the term ethnos meant people or nation, but we currently know it as culture. That means the group of people who are defined by cultural, linguistic, or racial similarities. The concept works as a method of classification that relates to a sense of belonging, which allows members of an ethnic group to recognize each other as equals or as members of the same group. Ethnic indicators are the characteristics that define ethnicity. They include racial attributes, common background, religious beliefs, shared rituals, language, and more. It is also important to mention that ethnicity is relevant to social segmentation. I would like to introduce you to the ethics referred to the marketing communications. First, the subliminal messaging. According to Gratz, subliminal messaging conveys hidden messages of which viewers are not consciously aware. Insertions in marketing material might be used to manipulate the thinking of the consumer about minority groups. Needs are deeply entrenched in the subjectivity of individuals and sometimes are not consciously perceived. Therefore, advertising messages are indirect. In other words, they suggest and evoke, because if a very direct proposition is used, people might reject it. Now I will jump to the next concept, which is the typified representations. They refer to the image or idea associated with a social group, which is attributed to its behaviors, qualities, or any other identifying characteristic that they have. The concept is usually negative, since it tends to classify and label a group of people by generalizing them. According to Borgerson, typified representations influence the way consumers and groups are perceived by others and can affect the dignity and historical integrity of a group, putting a negative spin on the ontological status of its members as human beings. The third concept is the misrepresentation by inclusion. This is about the inclusion of certain consumers from ethnic minorities or ethnic minority groups in marketing communications. Surely everyone has seen a Benetton ad. They are really unique because there are so many colorful elements and the people who wore the clothes are of all ethnicities. This is meant to be a positive thing, but by highlighting physical differences so much, it perpetuates stereotypes of difference. Finally, I will present the misrepresentation by exclusion, which is the exact opposite as the previous one. Misrepresentation by exclusion refers to certain consumers from ethnic minorities being left out of marketing communications, for example, from the advertisements or the media. This reduces the importance of an ethnic group and creates problems of identity and self-esteem among the excluded. For example, in the image on the right side, there is a group of girls and all of them are blonde. This advertising is from one of the biggest department stores in Peru. As it is well known, people in South America don't look like that. And so this publicity would be discriminatory by not showing the reality of how people in that country look, which is also understood as the fact that this advertisement is orientated to another specific public, which is not the national one. The contrast is clearly seen in Target's advertising that includes multicultural girls.
So, when talking about ethics in general, there is a big problem that occurs a lot in ethnic marketing, and a lot of companies they do very poor business practices and they try to market their products to different countries, and they don't even study properly the culture and their beliefs, and they commit a lot of mistakes. And also when you're doing, for example, you can see here in this Pringles, and they're selling the Pringles, and it's written there, Ramadan Mubarak, which is the Ramadan is when the Muslims do their fasting. So they probably trying to sell these Pringles to Muslim countries. They were selling, and there was a little problem in that because the Pringles flavored bacon. You can see the smoky bacon flavor, and the Muslims do not eat bacon. So it was a shame for the company, for Pringles. And this is just an example of poor business practices. And there is a high cultural sensitivity when doing ethnic marketing as well, because there's a high potential for these minorities to, of course, for example, the Pringles thing. And some people even consider that ethnic marketing is usually more unethical because it distinguishes people by like some criteria such as their race or their culture. And so companies, they should avoid the ethnicity criteria as like being ethnic marketing, because they're often noted by their inequality or inferiority. And this is usually this appears to be a discrimination somehow, and it has a very bad effect in the company, of course, when they do this type of ad. So they really have to be careful when doing ads such as. So moving on to ethnic marketing strategies. Basically, ethnic marketing, we can define it as marketing segmentation approach that groups consumers on the basis of their ethnicity and background. It begins by studying the main elements of a culture, because culture is the main point of this, and it is very important for strategic marketing. This type of marketing studies how and the background influence or actually affect the consumer behavior. So, for example, in the Balkan areas, they ask people what is important in an advertisement. They reply by saying one of the most important things is the language, and it makes a big deal in terms of buying the product. And people are influenced by their culture, which affects the way they think about things and the way they approach products. And we are going to talk about this in detail in the following slides. We can see that like culture is a collection of different elements such as language, religion, values, beliefs, and etc. And studying about cultures is really important, especially for countries who have different ethnic backgrounds and people who come from other countries. We study their culture so we can focus on the main elements of their culture and try to build a connection between them. So when talking about some ethnic marketing strategies, you could also mention the customer interaction, because it is very good. It can bring a lot of advantages in ethnic marketing, because this customer interaction is a very good way of developing a relationship with some customers, because these customers that are usually minorities at a place, they usually respond more positively to these products that are targeted to them, and which makes them more connected to the product. And also this interaction is also a good way of dispelling the perception of exclusion, as Jamal and Laroche mentioned here. And when they feel that they are less excluded from a certain society, this kind of makes them stronger connection with the company, as I mentioned before, which could at the end bring them certain trust towards a certain company or towards a certain product, which can actually be beneficial at the end for the company.
I want to mention some interesting facts about ethno marketing. So it started in the 1960s when Germany's economy started to boom and started to develop. At that time, companies realized the need of foreign workers to complete their company's tasks. And in the 60s, that led to 120,000 Italians to migrate to Germany and leave their home. So basically, the result was that they targeted Italian people through radio broadcasts. So they provided the content in their language. And the German radio broadcast focused on entertaining different people from different backgrounds. Like, for example, people from Greece, Spain, Turkish, and Serbian and Croatian people. Which all of this actually resulted in foreign workers consuming 50% of what is called programs for foreigners. And by that, editors received many suggestions and many messages. And because of that, the foundation of ethnic marketing was starting to get established. And this concept actually in Germany took many decades to establish, whereas in the US it was widely spread and already well known. So moving on to Turks in Germany, we can say that the immigration of Turks in Germany had a very great impact on German companies, and the Turkish language became a very important language in Germany, even in companies such as Mercedes, Deutsche Telekom, and Bundespost. Even there were some donor apps that were covered with ads from different German companies and many other things that was associated with Turks. And like most Turks in Germany belong to the second or third generation of immigrants, and they have retained their social and cultural and religious beliefs and identity of their country. And they have established shops that provide products. And for example, in my case, me as a practicing Muslim, I eat halal. And whenever I want to buy meat or go to grocery shopping, I go to the Turkish shops because they provide me products that go along with my religion and my beliefs. And talking about the Turkish doner and Turkish kebab, like the Turkish kebab, it was like an adaptation of the Turkish food into the German. And this actually is a whole other topic in terms of market adaptation. Some companies nowadays are trying to attract citizens and immigrants from different backgrounds with special marketing strategy, which actually refers to their ethnicity. For example, in the US, this type of studying other people's culture is called ethnic marketing, whereas in Germany it's called ethno marketing, and this type of study is applied to Turks in Germany. And nowadays many European enterprises and companies are taking culture into consideration, and as I said from before, so they can attract other people from different backgrounds and build a connection between products and their customers. Basically, understanding and responding is the basis of ethno marketing.
Now we have selected a chart where we can usually see the composition of Germany's groups at the end of 2019. According to the German Federal Statistical Office, at that time, 11.2 million foreigners were residing in the country. And as we already know, the Turkish people are the most predominant group, followed by the Syrians. And we think it's important to keep this data in mind since, as we know, all these groups are a large part of the German population, and it's an important factor that can influence the type of marketing that a company establishes in the German market.
So now I'm going to talk about the conclusion of our presentation. And as mentioned before during the presentation, a lot of companies, they commit mistakes when doing ethnic marketing. So a good study of the culture of the market to which you want to introduce is essential. So they cannot just go into a new country or a new place trying to introduce a new product, but they also have to do a very good study of the place they're. And from the point of view of society, ethnic marketing is discriminatory because it is not ethical to divide the society in ethnic groups. So this was also mentioned during the presentation, and I believe it is pretty much self-explanatory. And the third point, so basically nowadays, with the advance of technologies and internet, and also all these flights, available, people are flying around, I believe that people are more connected, and it made the young generations much more integrated in open global society.
Here you will find our bibliography. These are the sources of all the pictures we used. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed our presentation.